want to welcome everybody to this webinar on Azerbaijan, and in particular, the contemporary history and the religious situation of Azerbaijan. My name is Dr. Robert Hunt. I'm the Director of Global Theological Education at Perkins School of Theology, which is part of the Southern Methodist University in Dallas, Texas. And one of my major jobs is helping coordinate our interfaith and interreligious dialogue and an increase in intercultural understanding. So I'm very pleased today to have the opportunity to host this webinar on Azerbaijan. So I'm going to now turn this over to Dr. Nariman Gasimoglu for his presentation, and we look forward to it, Dr. Gasimoglu.
Thank you. Thank you first, Robert, and thank you, Ferda, I guess, for the presentation on the history of religions in Azerbaijan can serve a kind of good transition to my talk on specifics of religiosity of Muslim majority in Azerbaijan. Actually, there is pretty much to talk about this, but I guess I need to try to limit my talk to what would allow for understanding Azerbaijani religiosity in a simpler way, so that the audience and you could grasp the essence of what is going on in the current realities of the religious situation in Azerbaijan, particularly in the realm of how a country like Azerbaijan with Muslim majority dealt with religious diversities, which have historically become part of even cultural identity of Azerbaijanis. Besides historical and political reasons, the religious mentality of Azerbaijanis have been nurtured by rich cultural heritage. That's what I'm trying to focus on first. Generations of Azerbaijanis from ancient times until now were brought up, and the traditions shaped by great examples, which of this cultural heritage has offered, and the spirit of the respect for other religious traditions. Azerbaijanis have always been accepting religious diversities, not only as an inevitably existing reality, but also part of their daily lives. I hope very few examples from among countless ones at this point will be enough to create an impression, certain impression on how religiosity of Muslim majority towards other faith could be shaped by literary works of giants of Azerbaijani literature. First, I would make a reference to the most ancient one, Kitab-i Dede Gorgu. This is epos. It is believed to have emerged and circulated among Azerbaijani people from 7th century. And actually, it is believed to have been written down on paper starting from 16th century. And all toponyms mentioned in this epos cover present-day Azerbaijan, Azerbaijan geography, and part of Anatolia in Turkey. The religion of the heroes in this epos seems to be far from being a religion of, guess what, a religion of mullahs and or imams, since the heroes had no religious figures among them. They worship directly God and perform their prayers individually. You can see no clergy guiding their ceremonies. The way they communicate with God is quite different of the religion of those in captivity of the traditional Sharia, Muslim Sharia law. And the content of their communication with God is absolutely life-based and depicted as such. It is, and therefore seems to be kind of welcomed by God. As it is said in one of the chapters, it says in those days, blessings of gentlemen were blessed and curses were met and came true. All their prayers would be heard by God. So the main purpose of Muslim religion and this epos is about serving firstly worldly salvation, as to make the life more meaningful and less burdened with sufferings. And you can find no signs of hatred or aggression on a religious ground. And by the way, one of the heroines in this epos is Sedjan Khatun. She's of Christian origin. She married a Muslim guy, and she enjoys the equal respect of Muslim Turkic community. And I would give you another example from this epos, and this is brilliantly illustrative of how the unknown author of this folk epos masterfully develops the plot of the book, and in the sense that he relates the plots to one of the heroes, Bamsi Beyrak. His name is Bamsi Beyrak, and he gets arrested by the Christian rivals and spends 16 years in their custody, and the daughter of the Christian rival tribe falls in love with him, and he promises her to get back to her once he is released from the prison. He takes an oath and says, "May my sword cut me into pieces if I don't keep my promise, and to marry you as soon as I see my beloved ones, my relatives, and return back to you." And what happens later, it is very interesting that he does not keep his promise. And in the end, he gets killed by his own relatives. And so his death seems to be symbolically associated with his violation of this sacred oath. And the oath comes true, right? And one of the other interesting facts about what could be accepted as part of the roots of Azerbaijani Muslim religiosity is that the character of Jesus Christ runs like a red thread through Azerbaijani classic literature. You probably would assume that it could stem from the fact that Jesus Christ is one much revered in Islamic faith as a prophet. But the intriguing is that his character mainly used to be viewed far from this traditional Muslim perception, Muslim assumption of Jesus Christ. And I cannot help referring to one of the poems by Nizami Gencevi. You know, Azerbaijani take much pride in Nizami. He's a great person of Muslim golden age. The year 221 is declared, actually this year is the year of Nizami, since this year Azerbaijan is going to celebrate 880 years of Nizami. And all these poems are full of teaching episodes that promote this religious tolerance. He repeatedly appeals to the character of Jesus Christ. And let me just give you just one example. And in the chapter of his poem, Treasury of Mysteries, which is titled on Advising the King to Uphold Justice. And it says, "Turn thy face to religion because it is a strong support. Turn thy back to the sun because it is worshiping fire." Then he goes on saying, "Tear this curtain so that wings of Jesus may grow from thy feet. He who, like Jesus, gave his life truly conquered the world." So at this point, you know, important from perspectives of understanding the roots of religious tolerance of Azerbaijan sounds like how a giant of Islamic Golden Age, Nizami, being much revered poet of his time with his deep Muslim, faith, could embrace Jesus differently, namely not as considered in Muslim theology, but in the light of Christian theology. As I said, Azerbaijanis take much pride in him. Their own poet, the poet of Azerbaijani origin by ethnicity, by the way, who lived in today's second city of Azerbaijan, Ganja, although he wrote in Persian, the language of poetry of that time. So the same goes for other classics as well. Just want to mention Muhammad Fizuli, who wrote in Azerbaijani, lived in 4th century after Nizami, in one of his masterpieces, the Epic of Layla and Majnun. He, like Nizami Ganjavi, went beyond the Islamic theology to embrace the traditional Christian perception of Jesus, and whose advent in this world was to take away sins of people. Majnun is the main hero of this epic, soon after being born, and he's likened to Jesus by the author, and starts to talk and states that he has come to the world to take all sorrows of people on, to take upon himself all the sorrows of people, as to redeem the humanity of all kinds of grief. And interestingly, Fizuli is known as a conservative Muslim who was buried at his behest near the grave of Imam Hussein, the grandson of the Prophet Muhammad. Actually, almost none of Azerbaijani classics left Jesus unmentioned in their literary works. Considering that our time is limited, I would give you just one more example from Azerbaijani literature of 20th century. Drama Sheikh Sanan by Hussein Javid. This playwright, by the way, fell victim to Stalin regime's repressions in 30s of the last century. Sheikh Sanan is the main hero of this drama. Is the leader of a Muslim religious community, and he appears to be ready to bravely accept all kinds of hardships for the sake of his beloved Christian girl Humar, as to meet the demands of Christian clergies, who force him to give up his Muslim identity by pasturing pigs, right? You know that Muslims don't eat pork, by wearing a cross over his neck and drinking wine and etc. And at last, when embarrassed before a demand that he burn the Quran to prove his religious conversion, he says, "I dare you don't put such a cruel demand, because I'm not sure you'll be pleased with the burning pages of the Quran, which contain a lot of lovely verses about Jesus Christ and Mary the Virgin." And so radical religious leaders, challenged by this divine logic, they get forced to step back from their demand. So, since the religiosity of the Azerbaijani Muslim is of such nature, of course, it can be explained by many facts taken out of history. Further has already covered some specifics of our history, what happened with different religions. But apart from what I said, one of the main reasons that makes Muslim religiosity in Azerbaijan rather different from compared to other countries with deep roots of Islamic traditions, Turkey, Iran, Pakistan, Arab countries, that this country does not have deep historic traditions of institutionalized or structuralized Islam. as the Islam in former Soviet countries. Soviet countries could only exist at a social level during an almost 70-year reign of atheistic ideology. But what happened from the very start of Azerbaijani national independence was that some influential religious circles of neighboring Muslim countries began to interfere into the religious situation in Azerbaijan, which caused the emergence of some new religious sects in Azerbaijan, though they could not succeed in capturing visibly a visibly important space in Azerbaijani society. There were some attempts by foreign emissaries. They thought that it is time for them just to come over and to teach Azerbaijanis who distanced themselves from Islam during 70 years of Soviet rule, to teach them Islam. Of course, this all pursued, explicitly political goals. For example, main activities of groups affiliated with Iranian political and religious establishment were aimed at causing sympathy among the population toward political version of Shia, which never existed in Azerbaijan before. And they tried to shape the religiosity of Azerbaijani Shias accordingly in line with Islamic Sharia rules applied in Iran. And beside the political version of Shiism, there were some other networks of non-traditional religiosity belonging to so-called Nurcu religious trend promoted by some Turkish religious circles, and Salafism developed under the influence of Arab countries. And these religious trends also strove to advance in the religious market of Azerbaijan. But let me just wrap the speech up and say that since new religious trends non-traditional to Azerbaijanis mostly stem from certain geopolitical realities beyond the country and by no means are caused by its local historic and cultural development, in general, they look pretty weak and even with no prospects in the horizon when considered against the background of religiosity of the Azerbaijani Muslims and secular potential of the Azerbaijani society on a large scale. So let me finish my talk and express my willingness to pick up questions if you have any. I will be happy to answer your questions.
So, Dr. Gasimoglu, by the way, I apologize if I'm not pronouncing this correctly. My familiarity with Azerbaijan
is correct.
Names. Okay,
correct.
Is a question that asks, why is it that Azerbaijanis have identified more with a religious identity than a secular identity after all of those decades of secular emphasis? And what is the future like? Is it going to be more like Iran and Turkey, or will it be more secular, or will it be its own thing?
As I talked a lot about the specifics of the Azerbaijani religiosity, based on, what Azerbaijanis have always been proud of, as to show that they are, it is part of our daily lives. I mean, religious diversity and so on. Yeah. It stems from our history, and lots of stuff can be explained based on our cultural heritage and so on. And as such, a religious situation in Azerbaijan, being based on such historic realities, seems to be much resistant to politicization, and it seems to be exclusive to foreign influences. Mm-hmm. And so it makes some religious circles abroad who certainly pursue their political goals as to promote their political agenda. They actually seem to have failed to a great extent, especially on the part of Iranian attempts to politicize Shia version of Islam, since we had in Azerbaijan a Azerbaijani Islamic party, pro-Iranian party. It didn't occupy much space in the political arena of Azerbaijan, just not because one of the reasons why they failed is that, of course, it was due to the government control over the politicization of religion. It is not desirable thing from perspectives of the government. And on the other side, the hand, religion, the society itself seems to be much resistant to this kind of stuff. And the third reason that society accepted this party as pro-Iranian, belonging to Iran, which acted like it was supportive of Armenia, right? Armenia, Iran, was accepted by most part of Azerbaijan society as the only country that in our neighborhood that besides Russia and distant countries that support Armenia, despite being a Muslim country, right? And so it was obvious that whoever pursues some religious goals coming from abroad, it has a political content. And so that was one of the reasons that they didn't succeed in capturing much space in Azerbaijani religious market at all. And one of the signs of this resistance to politicization of religion in Azerbaijan is when you can observe Shia and Muslim communities performing their namaz in one mosque. You cannot observe this in any other countries when different Muslim sects could get together and perform their prayers in the same mosque, right? So it is due to some the traditions that have been shaped throughout history, and part of the policies called multicultural policies promoted by the government itself, since Azerbaijan has declared multiculturalism as one which needs to be promoted as a value, not only in Azerbaijan and abroad. Azerbaijani multiculturalism is being taught in some universities, abroad, beyond our own universities. So there are plenty of reasons that would explain why foreign influence in Azerbaijan cannot succeed. And as for future, of course, future is will be dependent on some geopolitical realities first. But as for Azerbaijani society, I guess it is much. It is too strong to be, to get receptive to the foreign influence. It has own internal, mechanism how to resist to this kind of. The traditions are not receptive to the foreign influence.
Thank you very much. I think this is a fascinating thing, both from the standpoint of the integrity and resilience of Azerbaijanese culture as a multicultural and open culture. You have a strong commitment to democracy and democratic values that isn't necessarily associated with secularism per se. So being religious and being democratic are both possible at the same time. And that of course is something for scholars in the West to give some consideration to. And I appreciate that. We've come to the end of the hour. I want to invite each of you to say a couple of sentences to close the seminar out. And then I will give my thanks to everyone and we will conclude. But let me begin with you, Dr. Gasimoglu, and then immediately, Dr. Asadov, you may say something and I will close. Thank you.
Let me first thank you all for organizing this great event. I guess our comments and talks went useful for all the audience and at least we could give some impression on what's going on in Azerbaijan from perspectives of our history, from perspectives of the current realities in our religious situation and how Azerbaijan Muslim majority deals with the other religious minorities. And this is all, I guess, was very important for us to discuss. And thank you very much, Robert, for having us in this great webinar. I wish you had more chances to enlarge this audience as to capture many other topics about Azerbaijan.
Yes.
So thank you. Thank you a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to close by thanking Dr. Jamila Javidova-Spitzberg for helping organize this and being the person who instigated it and made all the invitations. Jamila, thank you. I look forward to when we can meet face-to-face again. I want to thank Dr. Asadov and Dr. Gasimoglu for being part of this and giving such excellent presentations. And I want to thank all of you who came and participated in it and listened to it. It is because of you that it is a success. So with that and those thanks, I'm going to bring the webinar to a close. And again, you can look forward to hearing from us with the exact information on where the webinar will be available on YouTube. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Robert, I want to just thank you and thank Dr. Gasimoglu and Dr. Asadov for your wonderful presentation. You are an amazing host, and I am so blessed to know you. And it was a great opportunity for the world to hear the perspectives on multiculturalism and religious diversity in Azerbaijan from the perspective of Azerbaijani scholars. And I appreciate you hosting this, and I appreciate you for giving an opportunity for them to speak. And I am hoping for a future collaboration. As Dr. Asadov suggested, perhaps it will be a nice, some sort of a bridge between the university in Dallas and the other university in Azerbaijan to continue this type of collaborations, continue this type of enrichment and hold educational seminars. And I am sure, it will be an interesting perspective for people around the world to know a little bit more about Azerbaijan and our culture and religious diversity. Basically, I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity.